Welcome to the Austin Real Estate Insider, where we tackle all the issues that buyers and sellers in the Austin area encounter. I'm John McCarthy, and I'm joined today by Kristi Hassey. And today we're going to talk about the upcoming changes to FEMA's floodplain map and how these changes can affect the value of the home that you live in now. And if you're buying a home, how it could potentially affect the future value of the home that you are buying. Join us in a second. Okay, before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to our Facebook Live by commenting home below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Spyglass Realty. So, we're just going to dive right into the floodplain stuff. Kristi, welcome.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Great. All right. So, Kristi went to a presentation and learned pretty much everything that we need to know. Really interesting things to give us. I think there's a lot of points to this. It impacts a lot of people, and we're going to give a very kind of condensed version of this, and we'll share some information and links to more of this so you can dig deeper into how this could affect you. So, Kristi, I'll let you go ahead and take it away from here for a little while.
Okay. So what it is it's called Atlas 14, and it is coming to Austin, and we're actually in charge of creating the maps for FEMA. So it will affect quite a few different aspects of buying and selling. And essentially what it's doing is switching the 500-year floodplains to 100-year, which is going to affect roughly about 4,000 buildings. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, do we have a couple slides? Are we able to show those, or?
They'll be in the comments.
They'll be in the comment section below, so they can look at those, make it real easy. Yeah.
All right. Let's take a look then. So, one interesting fact that is part of it is that in a 100-year floodplain, you have a 1% chance of being in a flood every year, but a 26% chance of being in a flood through the whole 30-year mortgage. So
oh, wow. That's
1 in 4, or a little bit more. So that's pretty significant, and it's just something to think about. I mean, impervious cover changes year to year, and we need to seriously consider our flood risks and then think about it in the sense of buying and selling as well.
Yeah, that's interesting, because then that brings in the mortgage perspective and the risk assessment they have to take. And I'm sure that's going to affect the lendability for the property and even interest rate. And because they're really good touch points.
Yeah, so here we go. What's happening with that is we are, development is going to have to change. We're going to, in those flood areas, they want you to be 2 feet above the floodplain. It used to be 1, so that's a significant change. They also aren't going to allow you to build another home within the floodplain. You can replace an existing home if it's 2 feet above the floodplain, but they're not going to allow you to do anything new.
Anything new on the ground, right?
No, nothing new.
Yeah, so people that own a home now are thinking in a few years they might want to add on square footage or put a second dwelling on the property. In a few years from now, they just won't be able to do that. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, when they add on, it has to be 2 feet above. Even if the existing property is not, the add-on has to be.
Oh, wow.
And they can't increase the number of dwelling units. That's correct. They can replace an existing one, but they can't increase the number. So, yeah, that's pretty significant. And then that 2 feet, it's called 2 feet of freeboard requirement. Freeboard is just your base level. that has to be 2 feet above floodplain now. So yeah, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, that can get complicated and expensive.
There's an exception for the Colorado River. It's just not included in this. Basically, that's LCRA's domain, and they're not touching it. So,
wow. So wait, let me recap on that for a second. You're saying these floodplain maps and what's going to be coming from FEMA and the changes are from, it's more local, like lakes, rivers, and streams, but it doesn't include the Colorado River, which is the biggest body of water we have in this region. Is that right? Wow.
That's right. It's a controlled river. You know, we have all the dams, as we recently figured out, right? That when we release water from the dams, then it floods, but it's completely controlled. I think there's somewhere around 20, you know, throughout the entire lower Colorado River. So, yeah. 20
dams? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And I've personally been through the buyout process for a floodplain buyout on 2 different homes. And, you know, it's quite a process, and it was done by Watershed Protection. You know, they do you right. I mean, they did a good job, but it's still quite a process. It takes a long time. So it's something to consider, obviously, when you're buying a home. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Kristi, I want to take an opportunity here to kind of go a little bit further, kind of specific about how this could affect people, the affordability of homes, and even say competition in the market, because we know with this and the mortgage perspective, there's an increased risk. And I think from the insurance perspective as well. And we actually have a guest insurance agent today that's going to join our show, Reese Malin. And he's going to give us a little bit of insight as to how these changes could affect future buyers and affordability. Is he on with us now?
Hey, can you hear me?
All right. Hey, Reese. Welcome to
how you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, you know, you and I have talked about this a little bit, and it was very interesting, some things that you had to say about how this could affect affordability and things from the insurance side. And I wanted to get your perspective on that.
So interestingly, what you were talking about earlier about the difference between the major bodies of water and small creeks and streams and things like that. Something that we were kind of talking about previously was nowadays something that a lot of people are failing to take into consideration is that it's not in the flood risk is not entirely mainly with bodies of water. It is those drainage streams that ends up causing a lot of these floodwaters. Because one thing that we haven't really addressed when it comes to flood insurance is they have the elevation situation mapped out just fine, but the more that we construct, the more concrete parking lots that we build, the more apartment complexes that get built in the Austin area, the less ground soil there is in order to absorb that water. So what that means is more and more of that water gets diverted into these drainage streams. And when these streams don't get dredged on a regular basis, they don't get widened, they don't get deepened, they cannot handle the amount of volume that goes through, and ultimately the body of water that they drain into gets backed up, because water will go the path of the least resistance. And if that means right into your home, then it will go that direction. So I wanted to touch on that, what you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, so people that don't think they need flood insurance because they're not in a floodplain, they may be in an area that all the floodplain waters they drain into, and they could flood. And
100% correct. Yeah, 100% correct.
Cover upstream is what it's all about. Like if you know, if there's a development that's upstream that affects it, then you could all of a sudden you could be in a floodplain. So
yeah,
we had.
Teresa, I want to ask you a question on that real quick.
Sure.
If someone's looking at a home now to purchase, it's not in the floodplain, their insurance is going to be X. Well, let's say in 5 years, that same home is now in the 100-year floodplain, their insurance is going to be X plus whatever it is. What's the difference there that you could tell us? Because I think that could be really big as to if someone could even afford that house in the future in that price range.
Right. So there's two things in regard to answer your question. Number one is with an insurance policy, if you purchase that insurance policy prior to the flood map being withdrawn, as long as you continue to pay for that insurance policy, it will never be adjusted. So you essentially get grandfathered in to any floodplain that they just happen to redraw. So if you're not in a flood zone and the maximum policy is around $450 to $500, the maximum policy, as long as you continue to pay for that policy every year, that is what you will pay every single year. Your premium isn't going to change when they redraw that policy, when they withdraw the maps. That's point number one.
Okay.
But number two, so number two is, if you are looking at buying a home after the maps get redrawn, if you're buying a house in a high-risk area, like a 100-year flood, you're looking at potentially maximum risk policy. And realistically, that policy could be in the range of $5,000 to $7,000 annually. Now,
wow.
Yeah. So the mortgage company includes home-related insurance policies in their housing expense calculation. So if your client has a questionable debt to income, if they're sitting on that fence about whether or not their debt to income can carry it, or if the housing expense is too high, a flood insurance policy like this, if they're purchasing the policy after the map has been withdrawn, it could make or break a sale for your client if they're taking a look at that kind of extra income expense.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's going to make a huge impact when these get redrawn and the affordability, and that's a big question. So, and I think in a minute we'll be able to show an overlay of the map. Kristi, is that right? We have that available, or is that down below that we can show it?
I think it's down below. It's not
down below. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Reese. Really appreciate you coming on the show, providing the feedback, and looking forward to seeing you in Austin soon.
Yeah, that should be in Austin in March, and be able to help everybody with their insurance needs then. Be more than happy to serve the community.
Great. Thank you. All right.
Hey, thanks for having me. Y'all have a great day.
All right. We'll see you later. All right, Kristi. So I'm gonna pull up a couple of those little slides again and see if there was that floodplain map. Oh, so Kristi, we talked about how many dwellings this affects every year, or this is going to affect with lots themselves, and then lots that have actual dwellings on them. What kind of numbers do we have there?
I thought that was around 4,000, right? Is that what we're talking about? How many actual are 3,200, I guess. Basically, the ones that what it is, like I said, they're going 500-year floodplains are going to be turning into 100-year floodplain. So the difference there, and that's what we have currently. Of course, we're Austin's growing really fast, so I think probably 4,000 is probably even a better number of what's possibly going to be affected. And I think that's commercial and residential and everything. But yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, when you go to Flood Pro, you can actually, you click on more, or what is it? Hold on here. You click on where it says changes for Atlas 14, and you can see this overlay, and it will show you what we have currently. And then the purple is just a little bit, a little bit more. So it's showing you what we're going to have in the future. And this starts happening. I mean, they're going to be voting on this. The city council will be voting on this in a couple months. But it doesn't go into effect until 2022. So
2022. Okay, and we'll put a link up to FloodPro because that's great. That's a great resource there. And people ask us all the time as real estate agents, so what's the what flood zone is it in? And I think we all go to the same source, whether you Google it or whatever, it all brings you to FloodPro, and that's the source of it. So this is going to be an ongoing concern with rising waters and flooding. You know, it's affected us a tremendous amount here in Texas, in Louisiana, where Reese is. And it's important for people to understand this because from the housing perspective, you know, we keep building, we do run out of land. The water runs out of places to go and it goes into people's homes. It affects the future of the industry as well and affordability.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's not just, it's definitely not just crazy weather, even though we're having that as well. But flooding happens, you know, and it happens in cycles in Texas. I mean, I've seen charts, you know, where they show like, look, you know, flooding is a very regular thing. And then we have drought and then we have flooding. We're in a period of flooding now. And of course, you know, just what was it, 2005? It was that 3-year drought, and I thought it would never rain again. And here we are, right? And all the lakes and rivers are full, and
in like 5 days they fill them up.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. And of course, and like you're saying, in the development, people just they're coming to Austin, you know, for all sorts of great reasons, but it does affect flooding. So yeah.
It's almost imperative it has to change in some respects here because there's just so much development every day, developing in this area. Well, you still there, Kristi? I think that's a wrap for today from the Austin Real Estate Insider. So don't forget to like and subscribe to our Facebook Live by commenting home. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And also follow us on Instagram at Spyglass Realty.